what's up, everyone? Got a pretty awesome lesson today. We're going to look at descriptive adjectives. As you can see, I've already underlined it, but these are really fun. This allows us to sort of modify or describe a noun. That's the way adjectives work, right? And so I've got a whole list of them up here, and this will allow me to, well, one, these are the more common adjectives, and of course there's way more than this, but I don't know, I put some of the more common ones up there, and it gave us a little bit of a variety. As you can see, these end with an E, these end with an O, and then of course we got the A there, which I'll explain later. And then you have an R, for example, and then you have an L. So you got some that end with consonants and some that end with vowels, right? And right here, I kind of put those up here. So what I want to cover today, with this list at least, are adjectives that end with the letter O, at least in this form, sort of standard form, just without modifying anything. And I'll talk about how to use it to modify a noun, to agree with a noun, or to describe a noun. So that's really today's lesson. And then I wrote some samples here that we'll translate together, just so we can sort of reiterate and bring the lesson to a close by seeing how they actually work. And so I wrote right here, let me get my other marker, and so you can see that. So this I have here describes a noun, right? And so an adjective describes a noun, right? And so you have to, in Spanish, when we want to use these with a noun, pair it with a noun, it has to agree, and I'll explain this in a minute, in number and gender, for the most part, right? And so by that I mean if it's masculine singular, it would take, in this case, an O. If it's feminine singular, it would take an A, and masculine plural would actually be an OS, and feminine plural would be AS, right? And so that's what I mean by like modifying the noun. Now some of these that end with an E are going to do something slightly different, and then of course those that end with consonants, right? And this is, I put this one up there just because it's sort of unique in how you add an A to that consonant. But yeah, let's kind of get into it. And like I said, I've got a whole list of these adjectives up here just to give you a bit of a variety, some vocab, if you will, and also sort of use these as I said over here as an example. So let's start from the top. I actually did this in alphabetical order, except for these last two. These were sort of additions to the list, because and the reason I did that is because you have bonito and guapo, and I wanted to add also hermoso and lindo, which are beautiful and cute or pretty. So I wanted to kind of throw all those sort of positive adjectives out there, and that's why they're at the bottom of the list. So, but we'll get to those in just a minute. So we're going to start here with alto or alta, right, which means tall, right? And so the way this works, notice that I'm going to get rid of this for the moment. You have alto. So if you were to say un chico alto, right? You're saying a tall boy, right? For example, and with this being a masculine singular noun, right? That chico is the noun, right? And then you have an article here. This is an indefinite article, which we've already covered. But so we have chico as a masculine singular noun. The adjective must agree with it in gender and number. So gender-wise, it's masculine. Number-wise, it's singular. And so that's why we say chico alto. And keep in mind, in Spanish, the adjective goes after the noun, right? That's sort of different than the way it works in English. And so I just want to bring your attention to that. So we have, again, alto means tall. Of course, if we had una chica that's tall, we would say una chica alta, of course, so we would make it all agree with the feminine noun. And so let's move along. We have antipatico, right, which is, it means sort of unpleasant, right? It's sort of the, you have antipatico here, and then you have over here simpatico, which means nice. So a person who is antipatico is not a very pleasant person. So we'll put unpleasant, right, as its translation. So we could say, we'll just say una persona antipatica. So we'll give that example. So we'll say una persona Antipatica, right? Antipatica. We'll hit that accent right there. And so that's how that would look. So we're saying an unpleasant person. So una persona antipatica, right? And again, because persona is a feminine singular noun, antipatico has to agree with that. And that's what we do, antipatica, right? And so we have here bajo, which is short, right? Let me get rid of all of this for you so you can actually read this. So we can say, you could say a short person, for example, una persona baja, right? If it's a short guy, you could say un hombre bajo or una mujer baja, right? But because this is a feminine singular noun, of course, we're going to use the feminine singular adaptation or adjective to fit that. And so bonito, right? We have bonito, which is pretty, right? So we'll write that there. We could say that's a pretty house, right? For example, una casa bonita, right? Una casa bonita. And again, you know what? We'll say unas casas bonitas. So we will say a few pretty houses, right? And so notice I have unas and then casas and then bonitas. So again, they're all agreeing in gender and number, right? And so, as I said, the adjective has to match, if you will, the noun. So we have bueno, right? And let's say un amigo or un buen amigo. And so this is where, for example, this will actually come before the noun. And so there's a couple that break the rules, bueno being one of those. It's why we say buenos dias or buen dia. So it actually comes before. And that's, you know, there are some exceptions to that rule, and that is bueno. So as I was staring at it, I wanted to say, and I'm going to draw the waves there just for fun. So we'll say buenas olas, right? So good waves, right? Están buenas las olas, right? So they're good waves, buenas olas. And notice we have buenas, right? Agreeing with the plural feminine olas, right? And so again, that one, we'll put a little asterisk there. That sort of breaks our rule a little bit, but we're okay with that. And then we have delgado, which means thin or maybe skinny, right? And we have difícil, which means difficult. So we could say una clase difícil, right? And so I'm moving past delgado. I'm moving past the ones that sort of end with an O. And I want to focus on now these that end with an L. And so as you see here, I wrote this up here. So we're going to look at ones that end with O, or the vowels, right, that end with an E, as you can see, and then L and R. So right here, we have these two that end with an L. And I just want to look at how that works, right? And so notice we have una clase, right? Clase is a feminine singular noun. But we say una clase difícil. We don't say una clase difícila. Right? We don't do that. So if it ends with a consonant, putting aside our example over here, right, which is an R. But if it's an L, for example, or other consonants, R, of course, is our exception, especially with trabajador and some of these other R-ending adjectives. But that's what I said. That's why I put an asterisk here. So with difícil or fácil or some of those that end with, like I said, with an L, the consonant L, you don't put an A at the end. You don't put an O at the end, for that matter, right? You just leave it as is unless you want to make it plural, right? And so if it were unas clases, so a few classes, now we have plural classes, you would actually make it difíciles. And I'm going to write it right here so you can read it, right? Difíciles, right? And the same would work for fácil, right? Which is easy. So this is difficult, and then this is easy, right? And so fácil being easy, so if we were to say a few easy classes, right, then we would say unas clases fáciles, right, fáciles, and we can add the accent there. And so notice that with the consonant L, right, and many other consonants, to make it plural, you do ES, right, whereas in the singular, you don't put an A or an O, you just kind of leave it as it is, right? Again, feo, that's ugly. And I think we have the example here of ugly dog, so we'll get to that in a minute. But notice, again, it's one of those that ends with an O, and so like if it's masculine singular, it's feo. If it's feminine singular, it's fea. If it's masculine plural, it's feos, and then feminine plural, feas, right? And so, but that means ugly. Gordo means fat, right? And so again, it ends with an O, so you guys now, you can figure out how to make it modify that noun, right? So with that O. Grande, again, it's one of the ones we're talking about here. It's with an E, right? And so so with grande, whether it's masculine or feminine singular, it doesn't matter. It will always stay grande, right? Now, if it becomes plural, we'll say like big people, right? So we'll say personas grandes, right? Or I think we have over here, somewhere here, right? We have a big house, a large house. So we'll get back to this one as well over there. So we have personas grandes. We don't say personas grandas. We don't do that. And so because it ends with an E, the vowel E, we just leave it as is in the singular, but we would add an S to make it plural. So hope that makes sense. Guapo is, I would say, good looking, right? That's a good translation. Maybe handsome. Importante, right? So, again, if we just want to go with personas again, right? I think that's a good way to do it. So they're important people, for example. So you would say personas importantes. Again, we have that ES there. It becomes importantes. It doesn't become importantas. We don't do that. And so if it were una persona, right, a person that's important, so it would be una persona importante, right? And so, again, we don't make it an A, we just leave it as an E. And that would be the same for inteligente, which we'll get to that over here with our examples, which means smart, right? Or intelligent, of course. That's exactly what it looks like. Interesante, again, that's a bit of a cognate as well. It looks like in English, it looks like your English interesting, maybe, kind of looks like it, I guess. But that's what it means in Spanish, interesante, so it's interesting. Just a side note, when we get to adverbs, actually, really you're just taking these adjectives and adding, for the most part, right? Not all of them, but these, for example, interesante, if you want to say interestingly, for example, as an adverb, you would take this adjective, and in English, it would be your ly, for example. But we would just add mente to it. So for today, that's neither here nor there, but they're just kind of sitting up here on the board, so I thought I would just make that known to you guys. Joven is young, right? Right? Young or youthful, or right? Let's try to spell that right. Young, right? Jóvenes would be plural for, and notice, again, I didn't write it right here, but notice this ends with the consonant N, and then to make it plural, right? Whether it's chicas jóvenes or chicos jóvenes or niños jóvenes or niñas jóvenes, it doesn't matter. You're going to still do the ES. Because remember, with the consonants, right, in the case of the L's, the N's, things like that, to make it plural, we add ES, right? And so that's what we do. We don't have to, if it's niñas, we don't say jóvenes. We don't do that. And so we say jóvenes because that's how we make these plural. Now, again, of course, with malo, right? If it's a bad girl as a niña, right? You would say niña mala, for example. So, of course, with those, right, the ones that have an O, of course, we make agreement. But like I said, in this case, we're talking about the adjective ends with an N. So that's good. So we got malo, which is bad, right? Mismo, which is the same, right? It means the same. So we could say it's the same person, for example. So we could literally say es la misma persona. And look what's going on here, right? It's the same person. So as mismo has to agree with persona, right? It all has to agree, right? And so we have this feminine singular noun, and then we have mismo becoming misma because it has to agree with persona. Moreno, right, is it can be sort of a dark-haired person. So moreno is a bit of an interesting adjective, right? It can refer to someone's skin color. It can refer to someone's hair color, right? I put it up there to refer to someone who's dark hair, a brunette, essentially, right? So, and then another hair color along those lines, right, is pelirrojo, which is a redhead. So you can have pelirrojo or pelirroja, or right, of course, if it's plural, you would agree with that as well. And so moreno, again, is someone who's darker hair, but it has meanings that are above and beyond that, right? And so I thought that's worth mentioning. Mucho, again, that's one that you'll find kind of like bueno, right? It can come before the noun. Like that's why we say muchas gracias, right? You put it before gracias. Muchas gracias. You would say I have like tengo muchos amigos, for example. So you would put it that would go before the noun. So again, we'll put a little asterisk there for that one as well, just for fun, because like bueno, you'll find that it can come before the noun. So that sort of deviates from our rules, if you will, right? So again, as I said, pelirrojo or pelirroja or pelirrojos or pelirrojas, those is redhead, right? And so that can be a guy or a girl or whatever. So pequeño is small, right? Pequeño means small. Right, now that means small in size, right? Like it's a small, like we have here, a small house, right? Some of you confuse pequeño and poco. Poco is a few, like in terms of quantity. Pequeño is size, right? Like this is a small marker. Es un marcador pequeño, right? And I'll write that up, right up here. We'll say un marcador pequeño, right? And notice marcador is a masculine singular noun, so pequeño is what we'll use here, right? Rubio, along the lines of hair color, right? Rubio is someone who's blonde hair, right? So that's blonde, right? So we've got brunette, moreno, we've got pelirrojo, redhead, and then we have blonde here for rubio, right? Simpático, as I said, that's the opposite of antipatico, right? And so, again, I should probably put an A there because, of course, with it being an O, it's sort of open to all sorts of manipulation to agree with the noun, right? Tonto means dumb, right? And again, you see it with the O there, so you can, of course, do, you got to make it agree with the noun. Trabajador. So this is the only one up here we have that's an R as a noun. But when it becomes feminine, it actually becomes trabajadora. So we'll say es una mujer, right? Muy, with the muy in there, very trabajadora, right? It's a very hardworking woman. Una mujer muy trabajadora, right? And so this one, sometimes you'll see these nouns that end with an R, and they will actually, when it goes into the feminine, to modify a feminine noun, it will actually add an A. It won't just stay trabajador, so it becomes trabajadora. Now, when it becomes masculine plural, so we could say unos hombres, right? We'll put that S there, and then it would become trabajadores, right? Because we're making it plural masculine, so it'd be trabajadores with an ES, believe it or not. However, if it were multiple plural feminine hardworking women, right, for example, you would say trabajadoras. So you would keep that A and an S. So it would go AS for the plural, and then ES actually for the masculine plural. So that was a little odd, right? Again, we put an asterisk there just because we want to draw a little bit of attention to it and show how it deviates slightly. Viejo means old, right? And then, I think we have the, there we go. We got number 7, the old man. So we'll talk about that. And then these last two, again, like I want to include those because we had over here, we had bonito, we had guapo, and so I said, why not? Let's put beautiful, right? Beautiful out there, and let's put lindo. I guess it's cute or pretty, right? It's cute or pretty. Along the lines of bonito, but it's another way of complimenting someone. So yeah, why not? Let's put it on there. So again, if it's a cute boy, es un niño lindo, for example. And so it can be anything, whatever you want to make cute would be lindo, for example. It can be a person, it can be a thing, right? And then hermoso means beautiful. So you could say For example, tú eres una mujer hermosa. Let's try to spell that right. Hermosa. Tú eres una mujer hermosa, right? And notice it's mujer hermosa, right? And so actually, the hermosa is agreeing with the mujer. And so, but you could just as well say, if you're talking to a female, tú eres hermosa. And you don't have to say mujer, because obviously by saying tú and hermosa, it's implied, right? And so that's a good example there too. And so, yeah, so we got a number of, we got a whole host of examples up here. Let's take a look at how to actually use these over here. I put some examples here just to sort of mess around a little bit. So let's check them out. So we have smart students. So notice we have this plural, right? Smart is, there it is, inteligente, and then we have students, right? So we have estudiantes inteligentes, right? Estudiantes inteligentes. Notice estudiantes, plural, and then we'll just put the smart students, so los estudiantes inteligentes. Now notice when I say los estudiantes, that can include female students, but with there being, or if there is one male student present, then it has to all be masculine. So that's why we're doing that. So los estudiantes inteligentes. Now if it were only female students, we could certainly say las estudiantes. Again, this won't change as a noun. Las estudiantes inteligentes. So really, this doesn't change. Because remember, if it's an adjective with an E, like inteligente, if it becomes plural, masculine or feminine, we just add an S. So anyways, easy class. I think we addressed that down here. So we have clase, we'll say una clase fácil, right? And again, notice it ends with an L. Even though clase is feminine, it doesn't matter. We don't say fácil, for example. We don't do that. So good book. We'll say a good book, right? Un buen libro. Or un libre bueno. You can do that, right? So you do un libro bueno, right? You could do that. But again, so notice drawing your attention back to wherever it is, bueno, right? With our asterisk. Like it can sort of, it actually can work both ways, right? But notice here, if it's a masculine singular noun, right? If it's a masculine singular noun, we're going to say buen, right? We're going to drop that O and say buen libro. Whereas if we put it on the back end, we actually do say bueno, right, with the O. So anyways, it's like a minor detail, right? And so again, if you can walk away understanding sort of the basics of these adjectives, like you're good to go, right? Because of course we can get into the nuances of it, but this is a good starting point for sure, right? A big house and a small house. So we have casa grande, right? I hope you can read that. And then we'll do casa pequeña, right? Get that ñ in there. So notice casa grande, right, ends with an E, even though casa is a feminine singular noun, right? And then likewise, or not likewise, but with pequeño, because it ends with an O and sort of needs to be tweaked on the back end because it's not an E, so it become casa pequeña. So we'd add that A. Change it to an A, wouldn't add it, right? And then ugly dog, I don't know why I thought of this one, but anyways, ugly dogs, I'm sorry. So it's plural. So we would say perros, right? Plural, masculine, plural, and then we would say feos, right? Perros feos, right? Ugly dogs. Beautiful women, we did it, we had beautiful over here, right? And I have beautiful woman right here. And so let's do mujeres hermosas, right? So now it's not just mujer hermosa, it's mujeres hermosas, right? So hermoso becomes hermosas because mujeres is feminine and plural. So, and then old man, so we could say, for example, you could literally just say el viejo, but because we want to use a noun and an adjective just for fun, we could say el hombre viejo, right? So viejo being old, hombre being masculine singular, and so we make agreement there. So yeah, so that's really, in a nutshell, that's sort of the basics of how we do adjectives in Spanish. So hopefully this was helpful.